Chapter 2, Calling Collaborators and Teachers. One of the Brotherhood speaks. Why do we of the Council of the ancient Mystical White Brotherhood wend our way back? We will not have man floundering around in the recesses of darkness when there is an opportunity for us to shed light. Eventually, man must have no darkness in which to hide or scamper into, and we are referring to the darkness of ignorance and superstition. For back and back and back over the treadmill of life, man passes until he becomes weary of darkness, of selfishness and ignorance, and calls for enlightenment. We of the Council of the ancient Mystical White Brotherhood, over eons of time, seek and search and find acceptable teachers, and this does not happen in just a day, week, month, or year. All mankind is destined to serve God. Those who are to serve God in the full measure of divine stewardship are those who have traveled across life's sands many, many times. It is for that reason many have been called, but very few choose to answer that call immediately. All ultimately will and do answer, but it takes time. It is always our desire to keep each individual to a greater degree upon their own independence. It would not be a difficult matter for those of our council to reveal in detail to you how conditions and circumstances here on the mundane sphere of life would eventually come to a climax. It is our desire, moreover, that those whom we choose travel the path without seeing the complete picture, as it were. This results in an incentive for those called to move forward in faith. That soul will get its full reward spiritually. However, when one who has been called, who has chosen to follow the path of love and light, finds the path becoming a trifle darkened, and we can be of assistance, we do shed some ray of light, as it is our duty so to do. We're interested, divinely interested, and for that reason we shall see no shadows cross the path of those called. We shall see no obstacles remain in the path, for he or she who zealously serves God is worthy of every respect and consideration. We are interested in teachers, and more teachers, and we cannot find them fast enough. The wheat fields are ready to be reaped and thrashed, and the vines are laden with grapes ready to be garnered. We are in need of workers, and there's still many who are running the gamut, as it were, of the treadmill of worn-out, threadbare orthodoxy. Step by step, we shall lead you. The victor becomes a victor only when he or she invades the enemy's camp, particularly the enemy's camp within his own thought process. We shall lead you. We read an unfinished scroll, and we know there's much work to be done. In this very hour, there are many who are treading along life's path, seeking, knocking, asking. What are they seeking? Light. Whom and where are they seeking from? God. Upon whose door are they knocking? Upon the door of the inner chamber of their storehouse, where there is a plenteous supply of God's substance. Are they to continue to seek, continue to knock? For what are they asking? Release from strife, or release from the bondage of mortal chaos. Each one of you has carried a cross, and upon that cross is hung your spiritual body, and in that spiritual body you have kneeled and have called to us, your elder brothers, for assistance, which is always granted. Perchance there be those who have made a choice to follow the path of light and love and service to humankind, and later found, through impatience, that the road is too long, and that the rocks which they have placed in the road themselves scarred their feet, and they no longer desire to travel that road, but seek another. We of the council never bind, we bind no man of earth. Man is only happy when he enjoys the freedom in that which he is doing, just as you enjoy your freedom in that which you're doing now. Should there be any remaining rocks in your path, rocks or obstructions of the past, they shall become as dust beneath your feet, and you shall brush them aside, quite lightly. Should there be thorns and nettles of the past which have tired your souls, they too shall be dissolved, and no longer shall you feel the hurt of their pricks. They shall become as ointment or as oil of love, for you shall know you are accomplishing another overcoming. Mind not, dear hearts of earth, let man live freely, let man give freely. As in your soul's consciousness, those of you who have accepted the call, so you serve. Should there be those who, on hearing the call and making the choice to serve as unto God, and then because of some desire or reason of their own, they turn to another road, they shall never, never travel beyond our watchful eye. We do not forsake. We have no locks upon the door of the chamber of the council of the ancient Mystical White Brotherhood. It is never closed. It stands open, and he who chooses to enter may choose to leave. Do not bind another, and in love you cannot bind man. God-man is free. We desire that you understand fully the immensity of the task which lies before each collaborator. However, it shall be not a task, it shall be a duty performed in love, and the beauty of love shall come forth as you continue in your paths of service. Each one we have chosen to serve with us shall serve after he has made his choice within his inner consciousness to follow the light. Quite often it takes a little time, as you call it, for man of earth to make up his mind as to what he desires to do. When we make a choice, we look beyond the present into that which man of earth calls the future. When progress seems the most retarded, that is the time when the greatest spiritual action is taking place within. We never become involved with mortal confusion. We know nothing of it. We are aware that man lives in a physical habiliment and is subject to a degree to the environment of the mortal or physical plane. We do our best to enlighten him as to how he shall rise from that portion of life's pattern he has made of his own choosing. We never attempt to help without knowing that there's an end to man's mortal chaos. All the instructions on the immutable laws or principles that we have endeavored to share with some of our collaborators were given so that they might be broadcast to others and reach those who need its lesson and information to solve their mortal chaos. Distress of the physical body is an evidence of accumulated error, but does not by necessity have to remain. It can be overcome. Man of earth has made this statement. Thoughts are things. We say thoughts become things. Thus man endures for a brief season after he has placed his foot in the right direction upon the road of God's truth and abides by the immutable laws that govern that truth. We have made this statement. Let there be a smile in man's voice. First, however, man must learn to smile in his thinking. For man's thinking is evidence in speech, words, deeds, and acts. The Galilean understood this when he said, Man liveth not by bread alone, but by every word which proceedeth forth from the mouth of God. Dear hearts, there's no separation in God. For remember, you are within that realm of God. We too are a part of God. Therefore, do not look upon one with greater favor than the other. Remember, since God is no respecter of persons, neither are we of the council. When you survey the scene, you will find, as the Nazarene, so do we make our choice from what man calls all walks of life. It necessitates experience. Man must have experience. Memory never dies. However, remember this and never forget it. Never disturb the waters when they're placid and cheerful to the eye by looking back into the memories of the past, recalling old doubts, fears, unhappy experiences, permitting them to enter your thinking. Never, never look back, not even for a tiny peek, for it is as having cleansed the room of your home thoroughly, then bringing back the dirt and rubbish into the room and corrupting its orderliness. Never draw back old karma into your memory, lest you make new karma in doing so and need to undo that again. There's no greater peace for man's soul than having lived honestly, having remained true to his noble mortal self. We make this statement in love, the love of the living God. We've been interested in leading man for eons of time. We have many collaborators through which we reach others and attract them to walk the path of light. We're preparing to permeate the mundane sphere of life with well-rounded truths. Theology is serving its purpose. It has proven to be a stepping stone for man while traversing the physical plane of life. We've been making these preparations over eons of time, and now it becomes necessary for the ushering in of the new concept for the enlightenment of mankind. Remember, our work is spiritual and not to be considered as merely religious. All mankind can apply these principles regardless of his choice of a devotion to his God. That which is done in accord with divine law can never go amiss. That which is done contrary to divine law, regardless of what walk of life it may be, suffers its own consequences. The morsels of truth which the teachers have shared unselfishly with others have proven to be as a beacon of light on a rugged coast along the way. All such effort has not been in vain, for as truth is shared with others, the listener in turn shares it, and thus the endless chain of love is formed. There are no plans to be made for immediate procedure. Remember, plans are not necessary when desire is righteous. Plans quite often savor of misguidance of the unregenerated centers. You've acquired knowledge, and the knowledge which you have acquired has led you into the path of wisdom. Now the God-man, of which you are a part, is beginning to enfold you in the fullness of that divine principle. We never find fault with anyone, and we make every allowance for mortal restlessness. In choosing our own physical collaborators, we know that in due time, mortal restlessness will be overcome, Because of the frailty of what you have learned to call human nature, men of earth will at times be prone to doubt the veracity of some of our statements and predictions. Therefore, we make this statement lovingly. Remember, faith is the substance of things desired or hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Faith will attract from the vastness of the cosmos, the manifestation into reality in the physical form. Let that be your watchword, faith. When we of the council make statements that seem to mortal reasoning utterly impossible, have faith, for God's law is a natural law. Experience, as you already know, is a great teacher. It is born of wisdom, and wisdom means success and knows no defeat. As each soul applies the lessons he has learned through experience, tolerance is born. Where tolerance is, there can never be negligence. Restless is a mortal attribute, and restlessness shall soon be forgotten when hands and feet become busy. Remember, it is not who man is, it is what man is. The who is the moral personality, and the what is the spiritual individuality which God, man, we of the council, always endeavor to quicken the God man in each soul's consciousness. Through the encouragement of the what man is and not the who man is, we do not give recognition to the mortal personality. We're not interested in mortal personalities. They do not interest us. Mortal personalities are ephemeral and are but figments of mental emotions, mental frustrations, mortally so only. We're trying to make this very plain to you, to enlighten you, to lead you to the what you are. Those who are coming into fullness of this light are becoming attracted. Those who are expressing the desire to be mundane, collaborators, workers in the Father's vineyards, they're Israelitish, meaning willing to travel the path of scriptural light. Now let us again make a distinction between personality and individuality. Personalities change, individuality never changes. It cannot change because it is the indwelling, incarnate principle of God. That ever-present, ever-prevailing power of God is individualized in you as God in action. Do not be unmindful of the law of attraction. Throughout the length and breadth of this universe, they're both men and women waiting to share their ideas and their efforts, where their ideas may become fruitful for the cause of dedicated and selfish services to mankind. No man is barred as a collaborator because of his religious belief. As a man is called to become a collaborator and makes his choice to follow, he makes the adjustments between truth and error within his own inner being of consciousness. If he is unwilling to accept the truth of God as the truth of God is taught through enlightened teachers, he must remain the who of personality only, for he or she has not found the eternal what that he is. We pronounce no judgment, and we inflict no condemnation ever, nor do we expect to find any condemnation arising from among our own chosen collaborators. The calling of collaborators here on your earth plane is the only means of expression we have to voice the message of the immortality of life, which is God in action and abundance. We make this next statement in love. If we of the council were to keep record or give countenance to the paths through which our collaborators have passed, we would be without physical collaborators. The what or the spirit of man answers and makes the choice of what he shall do and how he shall serve, always in obedience to the eternal laws of God. For he's ordained by God. That is the only ordination that we recognize. Whenever man is interested in lifting another man from sorrow or strife, regardless of the name of the organization with which he is allied, he is recognized by we of the council of the ancient mystical white brotherhood. Seek and you shall find. Knock and the door shall be opened. Ask and it shall be given unto you. Remember, there are no closed doors to God. God's law is a gracious law. God's law is not mandatory. It is free and does not restrict or bind. Man has free will. Now, when we find one of the earth who should be about his father's business, and we find him at that particular progress along his life path where his debts become due and payable, it is then we call that one, and he is granted every opportunity to pay all the debts of past mistakes. Here's where the greatest tests are. Choices are made, and if man endures his experiences of paying of debts in tolerance with wisdom, he passes spiritually through the gate, not over the wall. And he's then recognized as a bearer of light, a messenger of light and truth, for he's setting an example for others through his integrity, his character, and his path of unselfish service. St. John 10:1. Only those are attracted to such services who are ready and have been given proper instructions. We have those in our council who are very capable of inspiring the mundane collaborators. That is why we are very careful in making our selection for key positions of trust. Though there may be a few spots on the inside of the vessel of a man, personality with its peculiar notions, we have the greatest scouring powder of the universe to scour and remove all blemishes or spots of character. We shall not select too many vessels or pots with grave blemishes in them, let us assure you. Injustice is no man's right, and he or she who claims injustice digs his own pitfall. We shall never permit betrayal. Mark you this well. Remember the words of the ancient sage when he said he kept the whiteness of his soul, and over him men wept. Therefore, keep the whiteness of your soul. We seek to ordain shepherds for the flock, who shall feed the sheep and his lambs. The lambs and the yearlings, we ask that you shelter against your breast. Love knows no end. Caesar has no power to defeat. What can defeat God's immutable, infinite law of love? You are familiar with the saying of old, coming events cast their shadow before. The hour has been approaching, and it is at hand. There are many who are now among you that are not here on the mundane sphere of life to accomplish material or physical ends. The power of God is not to be disregarded. Man of earth shall not desecrate his spiritual obligation. It is indeed a spiritual obligation with the creative principle of life. Those of you who are now radiating love in your auras shall need very little help from us. As far as you individually are concerned, but so far as the contamination of others and the distortion of truth is concerned, we assure you now, there we shall help you. Life is birthless, ageless, deathless. God is birthless, ageless, deathless. Never, never is there an end. There is no end. There is no end either physically or spiritually. There are changes, transmutations from one form to the other, but no annihilation due to the principle of true being. Now listen to us, please. Many of you who have been chosen have come from various walks of life, and that needs must be. It is better for men to have experiences traveling the path of their own lives, each in his own way, than for us to have made the choice of those who are traveling in but one direction. As we have mentioned before, experience is the greatest teacher, which leads to wisdom, and that action shall spell success in tolerance. Listen, let us come back to God. God makes no demands. God does not command. Your acceptance of our fellowship with you in the ancient mystical white brotherhood would be in this wise. To the principles of truth you say aye, and to terror you would say nay, and that is not by word of mouth to any one of us. Invisible elder brothers, as we are frequently referred to, then they would say aye and nay. Ah, our beloved of God. Within the sanctum sanctorum of your soul's consciousness, your God is the one and only universal God. Whether your neighbor accepts your God and with equal measure with you, or the man or woman with whom you brush elbows while walking down the path of life, your God remains your God, unmoved and unchanged. Your heaven remains your heaven, and your God is principle. Heaven is a state of consciousness, and since principle cannot be changed, your God cannot be changed. Remember, there are no enemies. You have no enemies. Only as in your thinking you give recognition to enmity. You cannot be held accountable for the manner in which your fellow man thinks. That is not your responsibility. If a man thinks in terms of enmity towards you and so expresses himself, and you accept it, then you become a part of the bargain of enmity. Do you not? There shall never be any need for you to become emotionally disturbed, only as you desire to be. We realize that it is rather difficult for man of earth to endure patience. Remember, never forget, be unmindful of public opinion, but be ever mindful of the truth, the principle of God, which never changes. Have courage, have all courage. It is a priceless treasure and never loses power, for it is of God. As a tiny seed dropped in fertile soil, so will your acts of love help and lead your fellow man from the unreal to the real, from darkness into light, from death into mortality and life. Your acts of love will have nurtured the seeds, and they will bear fruitage. It is always necessary to have material or physical sustenance to carry out a well-formed desire. That is not contrary to the law of abundance. It is within the realm of light and justice that it should be so. It is also well that man conform himself to the established laws of the country in which he lives. This we do not only advocate, but this we recognize as the principle of has learned to call physical government, has fallen into care and keeping of many unscrupulous individuals. Why do people become unscrupulous? Mainly for the reason that they are young in soul growth. There are always those who shall cross their path who desire to shed the light of truth, but because of the infancy in soul growth, they reject the truth. This does not become the crime, as it were, or the responsibility of the teacher. It remains the debt of the rejecter. Remember, as spiritual teachers, you shall in obedience conform to man-made laws. As we have stated before, it is unfortunate that God's laws must be in submission to mortal laws. But the laws of God may be taught, the laws of truth and righteousness. The principles of God are a law unto themselves. Hold fast to these principles, and your ship shall never encounter the rocks of despair. It is blessed that you keep nestled within the bosom of each one of you the oil of love. Nurture it, for you're placing the toe of the foot of your understanding into the pool of the vastness of the eternal cosmos. Keep the oil of understanding clean and pure, so that when the pillars of the new temple of your soul are placed, they shall not decay or crumble. Now let it be understood. We do not demand ministers. We not mentioned that there are many more ministers who walk the highways and the byways of life than stand in the pulpit or edifices made of stone, wood, steel, and brick. Whenever a man is interested in lifting another from sorrow or strife, his love of service makes him a minister of God. Yes. In the abiding ever presence of the living Christ of God, we know you would choose to serve. For as you have crossed life's span, you have not walked alone. The great purpose of the return of the teachers of our side of life to the mundane spheres is to enlighten man and not keep him in darkness for eons of time. Were man properly taught, life would long ago been easier and sweeter. Chaos and strife can never remain permanent. Man will learn thus that his greatest enemy is his own thinking. We of the council were able to come back to visit and work with Man of Earth. We too had to learn, you know. We moved about on the physical plane and the physical habiliment. We were no wiser than many of your present day teachers, having groveled around in the darkness of ignorance after departing the physical coil. The first desire upon becoming illumined in consciousness was to return and help Man of Earth to understand that man is power and that all power is of God. How very fortunate it is for us when we find collaborators whose mortal reasoning is uncluttered from that which man refers to as book learning or mortal logic reasoning. Now, when we say book learning, we mean erroneous book learning, for there's a proper intellectual education and improper education. For soul growth and for inner intelligent wisdom, one must be open to new ideas, wider fields of consciousness, a willingness to think. To know the difference between erroneous learning and proper learning, one must quicken the inner consciousness and apply oneself through divine reasoning. Some type of education leads to a stiff type of mind. For soul growth and for inner intelligent wisdom, one must be open to new ideas, wider fields of consciousness, a willingness to think. Through reflection and proper understanding, these erroneous suggestions are then removed when they are presented to man by the now so-called teachers in the schools. Learn not to be gullible to erroneous teachings, and learn to separate in your thinking the wheat from the chaff. This is what we are interested in doing. We're interested in tearing apart the hide-bound teachings of theology, not only of theology, but of all other ologies we seek to mislead men on earth. Due to the ignorance of the greatest law of life, which is the law of God, man fails to understand his fellow man. The word Lord in your holy writ should be law, for the Lord of God is in reality and in truth the law of God. It is not the physical being as is commonly accepted by the Orthodox individual because of the mistranslations. We're endeavoring to leave with you not one word or thought of negation. It is our desire, as is your desire, for you to remain free, unencumbered by mortal limitation, and so shall it ever be. When the appearance of adversity besets man, he shall recognize the fact that it is the working out of a debt which has been incurred in a past incarnation. But when it is met in love, tolerance, and patience, the debt is well paid, and the balance is never found wanting. This is the working out of God's law, divinely so. We shall continue to speak of love, for love is the power that keeps the universe in motion. As man moves along the path, each adversity he meets is but the balancing of the scale of life, and it cannot prove detrimental. Where it is met with love, it attracts love, and its opposite attracts or begets its own. We of the council must acquaint man with the fact that the law of God must be lived to the letter, and until that time, he must continue to struggle with himself. Can the blind lead the blind? Some try, and both fall into the pit together. We're interested only in light, only one light, and that is the light of life. Apply yourself, and you shall never have any regrets because of deception. Jesus of Nazareth expressed it this way: by their fruits ye shall know them. You shall. Whenever seeking light and wisdom from some teacher or collaborator, meet him with a blessing, meet him with a free and open channel of thinking, but always with the blessing, and you shall be able to know and understand whether the wine which comes forth shall be of the sweet grape and not the wine of the decayed, impure, improper grape. We trust that we have been able to make this very clear to you. You remember the statement, test the spirit and see if it is of God? This statement has been misinterpreted by the theologians, meaning to test the discarnate spirit. There is to be no fear of discarnate spirit. The spirit referred to that is to be tested is the spirit which yet has residence on the mortal coil. Man is incapable of recognizing any master until he first recognizes the master within himself. Man must first come into the consciousness and realization that he is master over all error, and then better shall he behold the masses as they present themselves to him. May we refer to the statements that you hear around Christmas time: peace on earth, goodwill to men. The proper statement is in this wise: peace on earth toward men of goodwill, God's will. How can a man of ill will recognize peace? How can one who has not reached self-mastery recognize the master who comes in his path? Is this not common sense logic? Is this reasonable or unreasonable to you? The time has come when with the lowly Galilean you will say, my kingdom is not of this earth. Though I am in the world, I am not of it. I and the Father are one. Mind you, the humble Galilean was not referring to himself as he is accepted as an identity, a physical being with the masses or the throng. When he said I, the identity he was referring to was the I am of God. Therefore, in truth, when he spoke, when he said, I am the way, listen, dear hearts, I am the way, the truth, and the light of life. I am, and you, as all men of earth, are part of the I am of God. As physical collaborators, you assume no burden as you continue your Israelite trek into the fullness of the brightness of the white light of the great Oversoul. Call it God, call if cosmic consciousness, call it what you will. For he who is in righteous desire singles his path to the Father's house is an Israelite, a traveler along the path of light toward God. Now, some may feel that we are rather partial to that which we call the Holy Writ. What can man understand of that which Gautama Buddha wrote, Confucius wrote, Aristotle wrote, Zoroaster wrote, when they do not understand that which they were familiar, namely the Old and New Testament, called the Holy Writ? All mankind is worthy of salvaging in spite of his rebellion and rejection of the light. What better way is there to salvage men than by showing them the light of the book that they are now reading and do not understand? Then they can be taken to Buddha, to Confucius, and all the other teachers of ancient age who are now members of the ancient Mystical White Brotherhood. These searchers of truth and light shall then compare the teaching and say within their inner knowing, now that I have the understanding of the Holy Writ, I do not find anything different in that which heretofore I condemned as null and void. Would you enjoy telling the story of truth? And in so doing, would you be happy in researching forth your hand to your fellow man and truth stating, come up higher, you are my brother, you are my sister. Now, mind you well, we are not advocating proselytizing. How shall you tell the story of truth? Well, as you walk along life's path, you shall continue to meet, as you already have met, those who are footsore and weary of traveling the path of darkness, as shepherds lovingly lead them. When the opportunity arises, you will tell them the story of the true light of life. For remember, the words of the sage of ancient age who said, when the student is ready, the teacher will be provided. Would you become a teacher? Then remember the following. Would you know life abundant? Love doubles for all you give. There's a means no surer than helping someone to live. And from the pen of another ancient sage fell these words, enjoying each other's good is heaven's begun. Your dedication shall not become a task for God, imposes upon no man of earth a task. It shall become a joyous, happy duty. Remember that. The light which is placed upon a hill lighteth the city wherein is the hill. This shall be an eternal benediction of God. May it grow as you desire it to grow. Love knows no end, and Caesar has no power to defeat. What can defeat God's immutable laws of love? This is our benediction. Go forth, rejoice, and prove to the blind of faith the dome of faith that God is. Bless each one, each worker, and as God's eye is on the sparrow, God's eye is upon each one of his beloved collaborators. Go forth, not in physical power alone, but with divine power, your divine power. And you shall find that if you truthfully seek, doors shall remain open because you zealously knocked. It is granted unto you because in righteousness you have asked. So may it be, world without end.